Hi crafty friends, Shana from ShanoukiArt. Welcome to episode 8 of Art Journal August. We're going to be working with a napkin today. I found that the floral ones work best for this kind of technique, but if you don't have something with florals, use what you have. I'm going to start by cutting off a section of my napkin that I want to use in my spread. This posy of flowers is perfect, and I chose this napkin because it has hydrangeas, which at the moment are my favorite flowers. Cut out all the bits of your napkin that you want to use. A lot of napkins are 2-ply or 3-ply. We need just the very top layer of the napkin, so we need to peel off the other layers. After moving my flowers around on my page and deciding where I want to place everything, I'm going to stick these down. To remove the backing, I'm going to use a piece of sticky tape, which I'm going to stick onto the back of the napkin, and then that'll help the under layers to stick to it, and then I can peel the top layer off easily. Here I'm just trimming off any excess background napkin. It doesn't have to be exact or perfect fussy cutting. I'm just cutting the major background pieces out. If you don't have a napkin to use for this project, you could actually also use a piece of printed tissue paper or even a picture from a magazine. It won't have the exact same effect, but it'll be similar. I'm now going to add my napkin down to my page using Mod Podge. You could also use gel medium or craft glue. And then I'm adding a layer of Mod Podge over my napkin too, just to make it a bit more sturdy when I add other mediums on top. You can see on the left hand side I have a book page as my page, so that shines through the napkin, which makes a really beautiful effect. You could actually add a piece of book page or even music paper in the background if that's what you want to shine through your napkin. You can also leave it plain. I've left the one side plain just to give it a point of difference. To create balance, I've put the larger posy on the left hand side and then a smaller bit of the flower on the top right. That also helps to continue the color through. Once everything is nice and dry, I'm going to trim off the excess napkin. Now, to blend the napkin into the background, there are many ways of doing this. There are 2 ways that I use. Normally, I will use a stencil and some texture paste, which I actually have done in a couple of my previous videos, not part of the Art Journal August. I will link those below if you'd like to see. And because I've already used a stencil with texture paste already in this project for August, I'm going to do a different method. I'm going to start with a small flat paintbrush and my white gesso, and I'm going to start blending around the edge of the design from my napkin onto the background paper. You can already see how the edges of the napkin design start to soften when I add the gesso. You don't have to use a paintbrush for this part. You can use your finger if you prefer. I'm using a combination of both. Can you see the softness it's creating as I'm adding the gesso? I'm also going to continue to apply the gesso over the white area on the right hand side to create uniform, and then also on the left I've covered all the book text just to soften that and push everything into the background. Once I've applied my gesso, I'm going to dry it, and then I'm going to add some additional texture. I'm going to do this by using my palette knife and texture paste. Working on the area between the design and the background paper, I'm going to spread the texture paste with my palette knife, allowing some texture to be created. You're going to leave this quite uneven because you want thicker areas and thinner areas. It looks great when the texture paste is raised up. This part is optional. If you want to leave it with just the gesso blending, that's also fine. But I do encourage you to give this a try. It gives a beautiful effect. While I was drying the texture paste, I realized that I didn't like the bottom left-hand corner where the flowers sort of just stop. So I'm scraping off some of the texture paste and I'm going to add a little bit more of the napkin, another floral, to fill up that entire corner. Once dry, I'm going to trim off the excess. Look at that beautiful texture. Subtle but obvious. I'm now going to use an acrylic marker that is a similar color to the dark turquoise of my florals. Whether you're using an acrylic marker or a watercolor pencil, or you could even do this part with paint, find one of the colors from within your napkin design or as close as possible for this part. I'm drawing a fine line with my acrylic marker, and while it's still wet, I'm using a small paintbrush with water just to blend it a bit so that the line is not quite so solid. And I'm only doing that line in the areas where there's no florals. I'm going to continue that dark turquoisey color to the right hand side in my white area by adding 2 focal points. I have some butterflies that are a very similar color to my blue hydrangea and they match the theme really well. These happen to be stickers. You could also find something pretty in a magazine or if you have a die cut. And then I'm also going to add a sentiment. This time I'm going with the white background and the black text. I'm using a bit of a longer one that I've cut in half and I want to apply it to the far left. I feel this creates balance. Sticking down my sentiment, although it is a sticker, I am applying some adhesive just to make sure it sticks well to the texture paste and gesso underneath. As I mentioned earlier, my butterflies are stickers that do have a transparent sort of edge all the way around the wings, which I don't really want. So I am going to trim that off so I only have the wings right to the edge. Once I've trimmed them, I do move them around a bit just to see which is the best location for them. I decide I'm going to put them in the middle, one on top of the other, just straight on. I'm unsticking the backing, but I'm also going to apply some glue to make sure it adheres really well to all that gesso and texture paste. I think a photo would also look great on the right hand side if you were using your little journal as a photo album of sorts, or even maybe a handwritten poem. I'm going to add a small detail by using my black fine liner pen to go around the sentiment. I think this creates good contrast on the left page. As a final touch, I'm going to add a small amount of white splatter with my watered down white acrylic paint. This will soften the overall look even more. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Art Journal August and were inspired to create your own napkin art. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Here is a close-up so you can see all the textures and details of the page. Thanks again for watching, happy creating, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!